President. That's all.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tawana Collins Booth, and welcome to Blue Table Talk. And I have my co-host, my favorite sidekick here with me, Mr. Arnell Brady, speech language pathologist. And today we're going to be talking about the best ways to work with your child's speech therapist for growth for your child. But before that, we're going to talk about 10 ways a speech language pathologist can help your child. So we're going to go over the first 10 ways that the speech language pathologist can help your child. So, and
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Booth. Well, the speech language pathologist is the recognized expert in oral language. And oral language involves listening, speaking, reading, writing, thinking with language. And the speech language pathologist has in the past has been called a number of things, the speech pathologist, the speech therapist, the elocutionist, as we talked about last week. But for our purposes, we'll just say the speech language pathologist. One of the primary ways in which we help children and adults is with speech articulation, that is, pronunciation of words. And we basically see three types of speech articulation problems. One is what we might just call a normal delay in the pronunciation of words. That is, we might have a 5-year-old talking like a normal 2 or 3-year-old. And the key to understanding that is a normal 2 or 3-year-old. And another type is, of course, the structural speech articulation disorder, and that might be seen in what you would see in a cleft palate, excuse me, a cleft palate child, or a child who is tongue-tied, or a child, excuse me, who might have a small jaw or extra large jaw, but has something wrong with the structure of the oral mechanism. The other type of speech articulation problem that we might see is where the structure is okay, but the movement of the structures is off. Let's say that the tongue is very slow in moving, or the tongue lacks good sensitivity, and therefore its sense of touch is off. Or we could have poor coordination between, say, the jaw and the tongue, and that can throw the speech off. So those are basically three types of speech problems, articulation problems that we might see in the child, and we could work with all three. The second area that we work with is what we call expressive language. And that is the number of vocabulary words that the child uses. And it can also be how the child puts together words to form greater meanings, which we would call the grammar or the syntax of expressive language. Or it could even be to where the child is using words, but not inflecting the words. That is, not adding small sounds to the word to give the word a greater meaning. For example, cat is a single word, but if you say cats and put that S on it, then you know you're talking about more than one cat, and that is basically what we call morphology. And so that could be off where the child is not using those walk, walking, or walked. Those are little sounds that are added to the root word to give it greater meaning. Those are some of the expressive language issues that we can work with in working with child. The other one, the third area, Mrs. Booth, is receptive language. That is, how many words does the child seem to understand? And that also has a grammatical component to it. And we often look at, can the child follow vocal verbal directions? Can the child follow 1, 2, 3, 4 step commands? That involves the receptive language. Can the child follow instruction? That is receptive language, and we can work in that area.
So that's kind of like listening skills.
That's listening, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That is listening skills. That the child is perceiving the message, hearing the message, and then following the message or carrying out what the message has asked for. Or the child is able to demonstrate their understanding as simple as point to the car or point to the table. That is showing an understanding of the language. That is the receptive language. And that surely comes in developmental stages as well as the expressive language as well. But the expressive language generally will go up to about 6, 7, 8 years of age, and they pretty much have all of the basic structures of language. And then it's just a matter of building on more and more vocabulary words, more and more combinations of words. But the basic structure is there. But what continuously grows is the receptive language as they are learning more and more and more. We would say they should be learning 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100,000 words that they should be able to, a person should be able to comprehend in order to be able to function in their environment. The fourth area that we look at is what we call speech fluency. And speech fluency is the actual expression, the actual combination of expressing and pronouncing speech in a timely manner. And that is if the speech flows fluently in time and it is not interrupted. Disfluent speech is speech that is disrupted in the flow, disrupted in time. For example, the cow jumped over the moon.
So that's kind of like stuttering.
That is exactly, that's what it is. Fluency, disfluency, we've had a lot stammering. We've had, as we have gained more and more understanding of that condition, the word to describe it has also changed. We started with stammering. We went into stutter, and now the more accepted word is speech fluency and speech disfluency. But stuttering is still very widely used all over the world. But and those are areas, and those are basically have three major types. We basically have the stutterer who seems to be just copying off of somebody in the environment who is stuttering. That is one type of stuttering we call learned stuttering. And then there's what we call the psychological stutterer. And this is a person who, because of something in their personality, something in their understanding, something in their social, emotional relationship with others, causes them to be hesitant with their speech. Speech is just a way of reaching out and touching someone. And when we speak, we are actually reaching out and touching someone. And sometimes when people want to reach out and touch someone, they become hesitant because they are unsure of the response that they are going to get from another person. So they might say, hey, can you let me go with you? And it becomes a habit, and it becomes a part of their personality. The third type of stutterer that we see is the physiological stutterer. And this is someone who, because of their neuromotor makeup, because of their neuromotor condition, they're unable to produce fluent speech, because they might have weak muscles, or the nerve might not be well formed or developed, or could have been injured. We have some people who have what we call acquired stuttering, and that is they were once fluent, but were maybe involved in some sort of accident or had some type of surgery or used some types of drugs that interrupted and interfered with their neuromotor functioning, and they become stutterers. That is what the fourth type of people that we work with. The fifth is the voice and resonance. The human voice is a very, very beautiful instrument that we use. And the human voice is as individual as our fingerprints. This is why you can take a formal voice print into a court of law, because everybody's voice is unique to them. Now, what you see a lot of times in the autistic population is you hear a somewhat unusual voice. And this is coming from poor coordination between the respiratory system and the articulators. And some people say it sounds like they're talking in a shadow, or they're talking monotone. There's no rhythm, there's no expression in their speech and in their voice. And that can come from poor coordination. And also the resonance of the voice, the human voice, the sound of it that is coming from the vocal cords causes the whole facial structure to resonate, to vibrate. And this is oftentimes what you can hear in people, like when all of a sudden what I'm really did, when I just occlude my hairs like this. Yeah, you talk. What you have done is you have stopped some of your facial area from vibrating, and therefore it throws the resonance off. And this resonance, is what we can also work with, and we can also work with the human voice.
And it says the resonance is the quality of the voice that is determined by the balance of sound vibration in the oral and the nasal. So
yeah, all of that plays a big effect. And when we say that everybody's voice is unique to them, God gave you a voice that's your voice. There's no other voice like it in the world. Surely you can have similarities, but with very fine instruments, you can detect and you can separate voices. Now, that voice that you hear, sometimes people's personality, and even sometimes in the autistic population, their voice sounds unusual. We have a way of measuring exactly what your optimum pitch should be. What should your human voice sound like? And I'm able to work with singers, disc jockeys, preachers, to help them find their optimum pitch, so they're not using a voice that could damage their voice. Some people need to try to talk, like they want to show they got power, and the preachers want to preach like they got the Holy Ghost. Well, I'm not using my optimum pitch. And in doing that, I could damage my voice. Your voice should be clear at all times. And some drugs and things that people use, smoking, causes their voice, now to change. Now my voice is that way.
Because that's why singers, they're not supposed to drink or do drugs because they mess up their vocal.
Well, what that does, it reduces your sensitivity. And as you are going, if your sensitivity has been lowered, you might not know when you have gotten to a point to where you are straining,
okay,
to where you are overworking your voice and you need to back down a little bit, but instead you keep going. And this is what we see happen to a lot of singers, that they'll sing and they'll push past their breaking point and actually cause damage to the vocal cords.
Okay.
Yes. Then the other one, which is really big for the autistic population, is the social pragmatic. And that is, if you even look at the definition of autism, it says significant deficits in social communication. And basically, this is what they're talking about, the social pragmatic aspect. The social pragmatic aspect deals with your articulation, your receptive language, your expressive language, your grammar. You put all of those things together and you come up with your pragmatic language. Your pragmatic language is your ability to use your articulation, your expressive language, your receptive language, your fluency, your voice to convince people to do what you want them to do, to convince people to believe what you want them to believe. For example, if I simply say, "Hey, mommy, can I have a cookie?" I am trying to convince my mother to do what I want her to do, and that is to give me a cookie. And this is why you see in the autistic population, sometimes they don't have that ability to put all of their articulation, their voice, their fluency, their resonance, their receptive and expressive language to convince people to do what they want them to do or to believe what they want them to believe. And this is one of the big areas why we're working with people on the autism spectrum to try to get them to develop social pragmatic language. Then the other area that we work with is the cognitive communication. We have what we call in society expectations in terms of academics. We expect you in kindergarten to know this.
Yeah.
And first grade, you should know a little bit more. And third grade, you should know a little bit more, and so on up the line. Well, we have to look at where the person is at. And so we give them all of these tests to see what level that they're at. What do they know? What is their achievement level? And even more important, we have to look at what is their proficiency. What are they capable of? And can we help them develop these cognitive constructs for learning? And this is what we call that cognitive communication, to have the ability to question, to have the ability to analyze, to describe, to interpret. These are those cognitive constructs that is expected for a person to know, to have that ability to know how to learn. And sometimes it just doesn't come automatically. sometimes we have to help people develop that ability. And that's the cognitive communication. The next one.
Okay, but before you go,
okay,
go ahead, I just read a little bit about it, and it says the cognitive communication skills, and it was saying something about these can be developmental in nature, meaning then the child is born with these deficits, or it can be acquired due to a head injury, stroke, or degenerative disease. So it's something that can happen if something happened to you, like a stroke or something.
Like a stroke, or like you can be afflicted with autism. Okay. And autism can interrupt your ability to put things together, to plan, to be able to organize your words, to question, and then to be able to fit the answer into your question so that you become satisfied with your knowledge, that you can help to build on more knowledge. Yes, cognitive, there are some what we might call innate cognitive abilities. One of them is speech. One of them is oral language. Nobody should have to teach us how to talk. We have an innate ability to just be in an environment to where talking is the norm. Right. Talking is the normal. We should be able to just pick that up. But in some cases, we're unable to just pick it up. Some people just do not pick up that innate ability to start speaking. And what we expect the child, the infant, to start speaking 6 to 9 months. We want to hear those first words. A lot of times say 6 to 18 months in some cases, and with some boys, we want to hear those first words. By 2 years old, we want to start hearing those first sentences, and nobody should have to teach us that. We should have the cognitive integrity to be able to learn that just by being exposed to it. We should be able to be curious about our environment. Some people are not curious. They don't have that ability to be curious, to want to feel, to want to touch, to want to see what's behind things, to discover. Those cognitive things sometimes have to be taught.
Right, and so that's how they use to one of the, when they trying to diagnose the child with autism, that's why they say, was the child, they give you the form, was the child speaking at 2 or 6 months, when did the child say the first word, when did he say mama, when did the child roll over, when did the child start walking,
so, when the child started social smiling. Okay. Well, did the child seem to be curious? Was the child able to follow things in the environment, follow movement in the environment? Yes.
Because like you said, the expectations, and the child was supposed to, like you said, 6 months to, and then you said 18 months,
6 to 18 months.
For the boys, but 6 months, did your child say this? So that's why we like this, you said the expectations. So, okay.
And that stuff is universal. That's all human beings. So, but okay, then the next one is, sometimes the brain damage from early autism can be so severe that we have to look to other means of establishing communication. And that's where the augmentative communication comes in. We sometimes have to develop augmentative communication, alternative ways of establishing communication, a give and take with the environment. That asking, that requesting, that negating, that protesting. We have to establish other ways of doing it. The vocal verbal, the using speech to do those things, sometimes it's not possible. And so therefore, we sometimes have to establish augmentative communication, alternative communication, and that's some of the early things that were developed was things, we talked about it before, like the picture exchange communication system, where if you wanted a cookie, you had to give me a picture of a cookie. If you needed to go to the bathroom, you had to give me a picture of the bathroom. If you wanted water, you had to give me a picture of water. Some of those early things were used, and now we've moved into the computer age and the digitized age, and now we've even moved into the speech generated devices, where if you can't talk, we have computers that'll talk for you. So that is the augmentative communication. And please don't leave out, and this is the ninth thing that the speech language pathologist can help you with, is the swallowing and the feeding, because we're also experts in human deglutition, and that is human swallowing. And as I've told you before, I worked at the University of Chicago Hospital in the neonatal intensive care unit, and my daughter at present is finishing up medical school at Meharry, and that's what she's in right now, the neonatal intensive care unit. She said, this is quite something, where you're in there with some babies less than a pound, some babies born with many types of different conditions, very, very fragile neonates. And that was one of the first things, we were working with, was helping to develop that oral feeding and safe oral, feeding. That is swallowing without risking the life or the nutritional condition of the infant. And so this whole issue of swallowing and feeding, especially sometimes in the autistic population that can have a hypersensitivity to certain foods, certain textures in the mouth, certain sometimes poor tongue control, but it can't handle fast moving liquids in the mouth. And so we have to be able to take all of those things into consideration so that the child, the person, can have a safe oral feeding pattern.
Okay.
And so we work very closely with human swallowing and human feeding, which I know is a big issue in the autistic population, especially when it comes to introducing new food types. Sometimes they only want to taste certain things. Sometimes they might not have all of the taste buds that the mouth should possess, and so they don't want to taste anything different. They want to just that once
every day
that same food item,
and probably the same time.
Probably at the same time. But those are 9 of the major areas that we work with in working with children, people on the autism spectrum. Those are 9 of the areas.
Okay, before we go to 10, I have a question. Okay, Barbara Bennett, thank you so much for watching. She said, can you speak on how speech and reading ability are related?
Well, speech, what is reading? Well, the mechanics of reading in the alphabetic society, which we are part, we use an alphabet system. And so we take these letters, and these letters are associated with speech sounds. And so when you are reading, and these letters are associated with speech sounds. And so when you are reading cases like dyslexia, here you have the letter, and here you have the sound. And what is supposed to happen in the brain when you look at that letter, it should automatically go to the sound. But in the dyslexic brain, it doesn't. And it looks at the letter, but the connection to the sound is not made. Or in some cases, it's only partially made and not fully made. Or in some cases, it's made very, very slow, so slow that it becomes laborious and tiresome and you drop out. So the importance of good speech development is that you have the foundation for oral reading. The foundation for oral reading is speech sounds. And if those speech sounds are not well and not adequately formed in your receptive language area, then you could have difficulty with being able to pronounce the word, or even if you not pronounce it, to even be able to silently read it can be extremely difficult. So the relationship between speech and reading, they're one and the same. It's just a different, you're just using a different form to where I'm speaking on air, now you're speaking on paper.
Okay.
I hope that kind of helped a little bit. And this is why when we work with people with reading problems, the first thing we want to look at is what is their phonemic awareness, not their phonological awareness, but what is their phonemic awareness? Because we've seen in a lot of children that have reading problems, they do not have a good handle on the sounds of their language.
And what is the phonemic awareness?
What is the phonemic awareness? Yes. That is, and the phoneme is a single speech sound. That is a phoneme.
Okay. All right, Barbara, I hope that answered your question. Let us know, type in there if you want to ask another question, or let us know if we number 10.
Number 10.
10 ways. We're talking about the 10 ways a speech language pathologist can help your child. So we're on to number 10 now. We'll go over 1 through 10 when we finish.
Number 10. And number 10 is educating and empowering parents of autistic children to be able to advocate in their best ability for their child, to be able to know how to ask for help, to be able to know, in some cases, how to refuse certain types of help. And even most important is not only should you have a good educational program, not only should you have a good intervention program for your child in terms of therapies like occupational therapy and physical therapy and
ABA therapy.
Mm-hmm. You need to have a good health plan, a good health system. I'm seeing a 16-year-old now that we've been working with for years, a young teenager. And we've been really working on her expressive language and her receptive language. She didn't have any voice issues. She did have some articulation issues, but she had some social pragmatic issues, but she also had some health issues. And the health issues was related to poor diet. Eating junk foods, flaming hots, potato chips.
That's the number one, the flaming hots now.
Candy, eating a lot of foods that was not allowing her body to be able to balance itself properly. And you need to first find out, and this is what the mother did. And the mother said, I need to find out, what kind of shape my daughter's body is in, And in doing so, she found out that there were a lot of imbalances in the body. And a lot of those imbalances were coming from poor nutritional intake.
Bad eating habits.
Bad eating habits. And so she was able to curb, a lot of that junk food eating. And it can be difficult when a child wants to only eat what they want to eat. They only want to eat McDonald's and they only want to eat French fries. It can be pretty hard to try to get them to eat oatmeal or something else, that might be more nutritional for them. But I think that is something that we must really look at, is to make sure we get a good health plan. And if we're going to educate and empower parents, we must tell them about those things as well. And also to have part of their diet things that are going to help clean their system. I've often heard people say a lot of times that some of the kids on spectrum have a lot of difficulty with constipation and things of that nature. And again, that's coming from poor nutritional intake. So poor water, they don't drink enough water, trying to get them to drink 34 ounces, 54 ounces a day is difficult. But if we're going to balance this thing out, we have to do that as well. We also have to learn about the individualized educational plan. We have to learn about the educational system and not be afraid of the system. We own that system. We maintain that system. We have to ask for help if we don't understand it all, if we're going to really help our child, because time is marching on. And this is a big one. And I was just looking at here. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen these? Yes, Autism Parenting magazines just loaded. They're just loading this thing. And I'd like to see Blue Table Talk come up with a newsletter that, kind of mirrors this thing, to where you can have this information coming out in more than just one form, more than just one genre, but it's coming out in, well, that's not even print material. That's just really online stuff.
You can subscribe to it.
Subscribe to it.
$2.99. They got a special one.
$49. $49 for the whole year.
Yeah, but I think right now it's like 38 or 36
for the whole year.
Yeah, they got a sale going on. It'll be like $2.99 an issue or 38.
Yeah, and we got to share that information. Get that information out. But that is one of the most powerful things, is the educating and empowering people to be advocates for your child.
That's what Sonia said. My AFU sister, she said, advocate for your child is the key. Early intervention, transition to school system, and speaking with the doctor. So, we was talking about the best way to work with your child's speech therapist for growth. So it's speaking with you to learn, to make sure if the child is, staying focused.
Well, I had a child on the spectrum came in today. Fingertips were blood red.
Oh, from the Flaming Hot.
From the Flaming Hot.
I told you the Flaming Hot.
All around his mouth.
Now, how are we gonna get that out of?
And the mother is using that to pacify.
It came with a popcorn now, so
to pacify. We gotta curb those things. You're gonna have tough love. We're gonna have to find all the alternatives. People who can change, they can adjust.
Right, but so besides the help, what is the best ways when some of your parents working with you, and how to help their child to grow? I could speak on what I did with coming all the years that I've been coming with George, my son George, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. He's 19 years old now, and we have been coming to Brady's Speech since the age of 4. And I could tell the best ways that I worked with Mr. Brady was the days he told me to come, I was here. The programs that he said we needed for George, we done them. He laid out a plan. I stuck to the plan. So sticking to the plan and executing it and coming At this time, I had to come. Now we spoke about it, how you can do it online now. It's much easier now. But you had I had to come to whatever office, and what's this, the fourth location?
Fourth location. Fourth location.
We're in the fourth location now. So whatever location that Dr. Brady was at, I took my son.
And we had to change for more space.
Right. For more space. So
but you're right. And it is asking questions. Don't let people just do something. Ask, why are you doing this? Where is it leading to? What good is going to come out of this? What can I expect from this? What's my responsibility in this? It's not just a deal of coming and dropping off, see you in an hour, none of that. We have to work this thing together. And that's how you become educated and empowered. I have parents that know, I think, as much about autism as I know, because they are set on finding out the best ways to help their child. And anything out there that is going to help them, they want to find out about it. They want to know how can we access it? How can we use it? And then what's the next step after that? And how can we integrate the child into more and more and more normal situations, more and more normal settings, and it is definitely possible, but it takes a little work.
You can't get no results without the work. You have to do the work, and you have to be dedicated. If you want to see growth in your child, you definitely have to put in the hard work and the dedication. But I promise you, if you do the hard work and the dedication, you will see growth. My son George, he's 19 years old. He's in his second year of college. And when we came to Brady Speech, George wasn't talking. So that just to let you know, one of my testimonies about my family, hard work and dedication that we put in over the years. And I never stopped. So I know sometimes life, we do have life that can have you to stop, or you have other things work. I know all of those things come into play, but when it came to what was best for George, me and my family, we made the decision to do whatever it takes so George can have the best help, which Mr. Brady Speech is the best help, the #1 speech therapist in Illinois. And you licensed in what, 5 states?
5 states.
5 other states. But
and now we're doing it using teletherapy, to where we're actually servicing some children who live way out in remote areas. We're doing it over the internet, and even some children right here on the south side of Chicago whose parents, work full-time jobs, and it's difficult. They have other children, difficult to get here. We're even servicing them on the internet, and some of the kids really find it to be entertaining and fun while they're working and developing, their speech and language. But, one of your viewers, Robin Burns, put it beautifully. She said, this is a parenting partnership.
Yes, it is.
I like that.
Yes,
I like
it is.
that.
That's Social Sundays.
That's okay. It's a parenting partnership.
Hey, Robin.
And that's exactly right. This is a partnership. These children are my children. I'm a surrogate parent to all of the children that walk through these doors. I have, investing in them is an investment in myself, because they're soon going to be taking over. And we want them to be in the best condition that they can be in.
And another thing I want to leave off with, we said the best ways to work with your child's speech therapist for growth is because we came to Brady Speech and we was loyal patients, and now we're family with speech therapy. Mr. Brady attended all of George IEP meetings, and that was a A1 plus, because you see the knowledge. So it wasn't nothing going over his head. Already wasn't going over our heads, but with him in the room, it always that's one of the reasons why George got the best services in school because Mr. Brady made sure of it. He attended all of my IEP meetings. It's good to have a good fighter in the room with you, even though the parents we going there, we fighting too. But when you have a speech therapist on your side and an educated black man on your side, you're gonna win and win and win. So that's another way to help a speech therapist can help your growth. And that's a testimony for me too. So, but before we leave, I always have to tell you all about, and y'all know what time it is. It's almost Autism Awareness Month.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
For us, Autism Awareness Month is every month, 365 days. But for the world, just like Black History Month, we just finished that. But for us, Black History Month is every day. And for us in the autism community, autism is every day. But for the world, Autism Month is coming up April. So we all get ready to let the world know about autism awareness. And that's what Blue Table Talk is about. Autism awareness continues because it continues way past April. So, but we're going to light it up blue on April the 2nd. And April the 2nd, that'll be our year anniversary for Blue Table Talk. So we'll be here with the blue, lighting it up blue. I usually go downtown and light it up blue, but I'll be here celebrating my first year anniversary of Blue Table Talk with the Autism Awareness Continues. Spreading information, hoping that I'm helping someone, some family with special needs to help their child. So, but we have our All Families United, AFU. We having our first fundraiser of the year. It's going to be at Panda Express. That's 1654 West 119th Street. So come on out and come help us with the fundraiser. And we're going to light it up blue on that's all April 4th. And that's on 1654 West 119th Street. It's in the little plaza mall. That's Panda Express. So come on out, celebrate with us, help us continue the autism awareness and light the sky up blue. And also, if you're shopping on Amazon, and everybody's shopping on Amazon, don't forget to use Amazon Smile and pick AFU, All Families United, as your organization. And while you shop, they donate to us. So it's just simple as 1, 2, 3. And we're going to get ready to light it up blue for Autism Awareness Month. Autism Awareness continues every day for us, but we're going to do it real big. And Blue Table Talk, going to be lighting it up blue on April the 2nd for my first year anniversary of Blue Table Talk. So I want to thank you all for watching. Please tune in. And before I forget, we just talked about the 10 ways that the best ways to work with your child's speech therapist. But if you want the best speech therapist in Illinois, Chicago, all over the world to me. So, but if you want the best speech therapist, come on down to Brady Speech. That's 5228 South Blackstone, Suite Y. And the number is 773-493-4000. So give them a call. And it's easier now. You can even do it online. You don't even have to come every day like I did. So it's no problem. But it's over 36 years, right?
That's right.
36 years of speech language pathologist. Number one, look them up. Look them up. Come to them. You'll see. I'm not just talking. We walking this talk, and it's all facts. So come on down to Break Speech, give them a call, and tune in to Blue Table Talk next week. I appreciate you all. Have a good night.
All right.